Hey, everybody, welcome to Radiance Shine from Within. I am your host, Raylan Sandin, coming to you live in the healing space. And my guest today is AJ Beaber. No relation to the Beeb, right?
That's right.
Spelled differently, but I happen to think way more awesome, frankly.
Aw,
Let me share with you about AJ. She is a wonderful soul. She is an author, speaker, and founder of Ignite the Light. She helps women through strategic programs and private coaching to love their body and love their life. She is also the author of a book featured on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Hay House called You and I Inc., The Connection of Sexuality and Spirituality. And I am excited to have her in this space. Dear mutual friend of ours put us in connection together, and we hit it off. And thank you so much for the work that you do, empowering women, connecting them to their bodies, and their power, their spiritual power, and their sexual connection. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. It's great having you here. We were chatting the other day, and I was kind of getting a feel for what it is that you do, and I think that I understand. But you were talking about the mind-body connection in relation to masculine versus feminine, and you stated it's mind. The process that you take women through is mind over matter versus matter over mind. Can you kind of share with us about that?
Sure. So I believe you would ask me the question of what kind of coaching do I do, or how I do what it is that I do. And I was telling you the difference between what I feel masculine transformation is in this world, which is mind over matter, which is trying to change our mindset so much that we actually force our body to follow us. And what I do that's different is the power of feminine transformation, where actually women are able to come into their bodies and their mind, and it unifies and they open it up at the same time, so that they can experience transformation. Because oftentimes what can happen is a person will experience the freedom of the mind, but the body's saying, oh, no, that's not true. And you'll feel differently than what your mind is telling you, or vice versa. Because I believe that both the mind and the body hold memories. And so that's what's called. And I know you do too.
Yes, hands down. I have chills right now. And that's my symbol from spirit that you're dead on. I mean, hands down, hands down. You know, some of our people that we admire, bigs in the Hay House, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, forefronts, Bruce Lipton in biology, I believe, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bradley Nelson in the Emotion Code. On and on and on. Greg Braden, Deepak Chopra. All of them talk about how how emotions and thoughts and memories are held in our physical body, but also in our mental faculties as well. And there is nothing in our aspect of ourself, our human incarnation, that is untouched by those things, correct? Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
How did you get on this path? Tell us your story a little bit.
Okay. Well, my story around this whole sexuality, spirituality thing is I grew up with parents who were divorced. So that led me down that path of trying to please both sides. And I really lost my voice. I lost my identity in that process. And so therefore that drove me to look for a place to find that part of myself. And the way I found it was through journaling and just my spirituality. It was like I was kind of a different teenager, where I would come home from school and I would just journal my thoughts for the day. And I would have these conversations with God. And so through that, I would experience these feelings in my body. So a great example is I would walk into a grocery store and I would hear my own internal voice, because I had practiced it so much with journaling. I would hear it and it would say, go pray for that woman's grandmother. And so you have to understand, I was a super shy teenager. I wouldn't even talk to my peers, let alone strangers. So here I am in the grocery store. I'm going up to this woman and I'm saying, I really feel called to pray for your grandmother. May I pray for your grandmother? And tears just start rolling down her eyes. And she's like, that's exactly what I needed at this moment.
Wow.
And so it would confirm to me that it was like, this was my place. This was my identity. This is what I was here for, was to share love. And I experienced it both in my mind with this internal voice and within my body with this like extreme feelings of bliss that I would feel in my body when I did the work that I was called to do, right?
Yep.
So to fast forward, at the age of 21, I made some choices that were what would have been deemed outside of God's will or the church, which was...
Oh, I'm familiar.
Yes. And so for me, that was having sex outside of marriage.
Yep.
So because I had made that promise to God, and so many of us women have experienced this, there was shame, there was guilt, there was just these all of those different lower emotions that I experienced.
Yeah.
And so I call those the dark years of my life, because the next day after that experience, I no longer had those feelings of bliss in my body, and I no longer could hear that internal voice. So I thought God had left me, to be quite honest.
Oh boy.
And that's really scary when you're in that place and you
Yes.
feel really, really dark. And I thought I had done something to lose that, right? I thought it was my fault.
Right.
And so instead, what ended up happening as I went through these dark years, which was divorce, infidelity, sexual harassment, sexual assault, all of these different things around my life that were very, very painful. And the way I came out of it was I had this experience on a dance floor where I was dancing with these other women. I was actually in this class, and it was all about appreciating your body, loving your body, looking in the mirror and saying, oh, who is this woman? Like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with her. And because I had this experience and it was really wrapped around my, I would say for a term, sexuality, but it was really my energy. The energy came back in that moment on the dance floor. And that's when I knew that my relationship was back. And then I started hearing that internal voice again. And so it was like, that's all I could have ever wished for, Raylene. That's all I wanted in my life, was to have that experience.
So you literally had your light ignited.
Yes.
In that moment, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Woo. Yes.
Oh, right. I'm feeling that.
It was powerful.
Wow.
And I did, because I never in a million years thought that would come back. And it came back in an experience where I was so appreciating this part of myself as a woman. And that's my sexuality. That's my sexual energy. So that's where the connection of sexuality and spirituality came in. But from that point, I mean, to answer your original question, like, how did you get into this? What's your story? Basically, what I did is I was led to write a book. And so through the book, it became my healing journey, because it's a novel. It's anyone could look at this character and say, here's a woman who didn't trust men, who comes to a place in her life where she trusts herself. And what's that journey? And because I was able to look at myself objectively while writing that book, it allowed me to see the healing modalities that were used. And I didn't even know it. It was just me following that internal voice, writing the book. And then afterwards it was like, what am I going to do with this book?
Right.
There wasn't really a plan. So I hired a coach, and that's when he pointed out to me, he said, you wrote this book of this healing journey. Maybe you're to help other women through their journey. And that's how it started.
I love that. Can you hold the book up for us so
our
viewers can see the book?
Absolutely. I don't know if you can see it because the light there. Can you see it?
There you go. Yeah. You and I Inc. Yeah. The connection. You and I Inc.
The connection of sexuality and spirituality.
Love that. You know, so many individuals nowadays walk around just kind of on autopilot, right? And the presumption is, the conditioning of our families of origin, our cultures, et cetera, is that we're human beings having a spiritual experience. that could be, couldn't be much further from the truth, right? We literally are spiritual beings first, having
That's
a
right.
human incarnation, a human experience, right?
That's right.
And I know that it is critical for us, in our human experiences to remember that, to heal, and to return to that spiritual awareness. So you came in, I, from my observation of what you were saying, tuned in, dialed in, and aware that you were connected, that there was something unique about you.
Yes.
You could pick up on people's thoughts, their energy, their emotions, etc. I have a similar background with that as well, so we're connected there. What would you say then, or how do you reconcile that period of where things went dark, as you call them, or the walking through the valley of the
Mm-hmm.
shadow, right? um, do you now see that differently than maybe what you were feeling about it in the experience of it?
Absolutely. When you're in the experience of it, it's so dark. You
Mhm.
don't feel any hope. There is no light. You're just trying to get through tomorrow. So for instance, I was trying to work on all these mental, limiting beliefs with counselors. I was taking antidepressants. I was in this place and I still didn't feel like I was making any progress. And so I attempted suicide because to me,
Yeah, wow.
there was just the way out. Now I look at it and see that everything was pushing me towards letting go. I mean,
Yeah.
really just letting go. And once I came to that point, that's when everything in my life started to change. And I saw pain differently. I saw pain as my ally. And that's really what I
Ah,
teach. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, you guys, when we were talking the other day, AJ and I, she said something super, super profound, and I wrote it down. Um, the process that she takes women through is a mind and body transformation process, and she lays it out as we have pain in the mind leads to pain in the body, leads to blocks, which then if we break through that we can manifest. Can
Mm-hmm.
you kind of explain that in greater detail, so that we can understand that more deeply and feel that?
Sure. Absolutely. So pain, uh, we don't know where pain originated. It's the mind first or if it's the body, because we talked about how they're so connected.
Mhm.
So once what I do is, and I can even show you a little diagram, I think that would probably be a
Yeah,
little more helpful.
yeah, that'd be great.
So let's see if you can see this. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a diagram of a flame. And what I call this is actually a roadmap. And this is what
Love
I
it.
walk my clients through. So we start at the body because I believe that if you can feel pain or pleasure and recognize where it is in the body first, that's
Mhm.
how you're going to be able to recognize where is it showing up so that I know when I make this transformation, I can actually feel it. So that's
Yes.
the first area of identification. And then you'll notice you're either feeling pleasure in the body
Mhm.
or you're feeling pain. And obviously, if you're feeling pleasure, you're manifesting. You're
Right.
already tapped into these higher levels of masculine and feminine energy in this world, which is sexual energy. But it's just the polarity and magnetism of masculine and feminine. So we start here. And then once you've identified that there's pain, then you move along this road. And what I found to be true is that the only thing that can cause pain is our attachment to the story of it.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. Say
so
that again.
yes, the only thing that can cause pain is our attachment to the story of it.
To the story of it. And
Yes,
suffering happens here,
yes,
right? It's the meaning that we make of an event or
yes,
a comment or a belief or whatever that we're holding attachment to, right?
that's correct.
That's
And
profound. Yeah.
and that piece is where a lot of people get confused
Yes.
and because there's so much confusion in the mind, it's so logical, and if you're asking yourself crappy questions, you're getting crappy answers. So
Yes. Yes.
we're getting exactly what we're asking for.
Right.
And so once a woman can kind of break that down, and the tool I use is Byron Katie. I love Byron Katie.
Me too. I take my clients through the work. I was just going to say that. This sounds very much like the work. Oh my gosh.
It is the work.
We didn't even know this about each other. We're learning right now. The work is everything.
It's everything.
Oh, 100%.
She changed my life. I have my husband listed as #1 in my acknowledgments in my book, and Byron Katie's #2. But her work changed my life.
100%.
And so I use the judge your body, judge your work. You know all about this in this portion of it to get to the story. However, the story is attached to the body. So the body is actually communicating where it is that pain's showing up, so that once they make the identification here, they're not having to think about it. They're literally going back and feeling it. But the purpose, like of Byron Katie is not to just go back to the story and feel the pain. Nobody wants to go back there.
Right.
It's like, nobody wants to do that. It's about getting to the truth, as you know, of the work that she does. So then once you can get to that, then you can do the work, as the little guy in there, kind of, you can see that, does the work. And once you understand this process, feel this process, experience this transformation, because it's one thing to watch it on screen, it's one thing to read her book, but when it gets really specific to where it is that a woman is in pain in, that's when you can experience that transformation. And what happens is, with the clients that I've worked with, they've been able to identify where they felt pain. So for instance, the woman this week had pain in her chest, which we know lungs hold sadness, right?
Yes. Grief.
This is grief.
Yes.
And so this experience was traumatic. It was in her body. She was able to release it here, and for the first time feel warmth and vibration in her body, in that part of her body that she never did before. And that's how we come up this scale. But most people, all of us as humans want to block pain. But the whole idea is, if we're blocking pain, we're actually blocking our freedom. We're blocking our pleasure. We're blocking what this ally of pain is showing up in our lives to present. So as you move up the roadmap, then you notice, the freedom that comes from the work. Then what I do in this instance is, you see the woman looking in the mirror? Yeah. Kind of see her.
Oh,
see her?
Okay. Yeah. Much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. I'll just stand behind here so you can see it.
Perfect.
So what happens is, I believe that life is an inside out experience. So as within, so without.
So without, yes.
So once you've recognized that truth that you experience through Byron Katie's work, and you facilitating that, or anybody facilitating that, a woman can actually look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm the one who attached to that story. It wasn't even my story. Half the time it's a parent's story. It's somebody else's story that has been clung to. So a great example of that is, there was a time in my own life where I was young, and I was standing on the toilet in my bathroom, and my stepmom came in, and I was naked on the toilet looking at my body in the mirror, and I was appreciating it. And she walked in the door. And at that moment, I felt this, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong.
Shame. Yeah.
Shame, massive shame. So what happened is, we shut the door, and I didn't know what to do. And I put my clothes on, and I walked out, and I said, and I was going to tell her something. And she said, it's okay. We don't have to talk about it. And she put her hand out like this. And so from that point forward, I thought that I wasn't supposed to talk about sexuality, that I wasn't supposed to talk about my body, that I wasn't supposed to appreciate my body. And I made this association, this story. Well, what did I do? I did the work on that story. And I recognized that if you went back from God's perspective on that, what really happened in that situation is, my stepmom was embarrassed. She felt like, oh my gosh, that's her time. Like, she wasn't doing it to say, no, don't talk about it.
Right.
It's in that moment, something transferred in her embarrassment and my embarrassment that attached, and I attached a story to it. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes complete and total sense. And, it goes along with the concept of generational trauma and ancestral wounding.
Yeah.
family constellation work and all of that stuff. And these things get handed down
Yeah.
because we are meaning making creatures, right, of any and all experiences. And it's natural fashioning of our human incarnation to do that. But like you've said, it's us in our attachment that creates the stories of shame, blame, guilt, suffering, woundedness, et cetera. Byron Katie talks about a situation where she was confronted by somebody who had a gun and was asking for her money, and she had no money on her. She was simply out taking a walk. And she said in that moment, it's a startling, traumatic thing.
Yeah.
But she recognized it's just me and him, and we're meeting each other, and this person's in pain, and I'm meeting him at his level of pain. And I have no knowledge of whether or not he's going to kill me. He has a gun, but he could fire it or not. And if he does fire it, he's going to be the last person I see. So she chose in that moment then to express love for him. And she verbally expressed that. And he was so startled, he ended up walking away. And, and we go, what? How could she? What? But she recognizes that simply we're just in moments of awareness leading to other moments of awareness, leading to even more moments of awareness and knowledge.
Yep. I love that story. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. So using that example, what would have to happen is, in order for me now to be able to speak about sexuality and spirituality, which is something that was so shameful for when I was a child, I had to look at myself and say, that's not my story. What's my story? Who am I? And that's what Byron Katie does, is she gets to the truth of what that is. And so in that facilitation work, that's what we do. And then in terms of recognizing that, so for instance, with this other woman, she recognized that, I don't trust men. They're not safe. Well, what am I doing in my life that's not safe? Okay, if I work on my life and I change this area, because now I'm going to get a download, and that's something I can actually have a responsibility for, because we only have power when we have our own responsibility. We don't have power if it's outside of us.
Right.
So that's the whole point, is take that power back first. So you have to reclaim it in order to feel it. And typically by here, they're feeling it. They're feeling open. They're feeling this pain in the body gone. They're having this experience. They're now setting rules for themselves as to how to take that responsibility and their power back. They're looking in the mirror and saying, now I can trust you. Now I can love you, because I know that it falls right here. And I've got these 3 things that I'm focused on this week, and I'm going for it. Then to answer your original question, then you can move up to these levels of him and her. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Okay. So feminine energy is universal.
Yeah.
And as women, we appreciate. But feminine energy is also receiving.
Yes.
So most women block themselves from receiving pleasure, but they live in that lower state of the mind, and so they don't get there to have that moment of manifestation, because they're right here. But once they've opened that up, and then they're aware of their own feminine energy and where they're blocking it, when they tap into universal feminine energy, no matter what it is, that allows us to receive. But feminine energy cannot spark one another. We would all keel over and be bored of one another if it was just women on this world, because our energy is the same. But it takes the masculine energy to spark us. And that all happens within. So I teach the feminine voice, the masculine voice within, in order to manifest it without. And everybody comes in with different intentions for what it is that you're manifesting.
Well, and so the way spiritual law and just even our physical realm is governed by balance and harmony, and there is a give and a take. We see the symbol of yin and yang, the light and the dark, right? And there's always a pinpoint of light in the shadow and a pinpoint of shadow in the light. And there is that balance, reciprocity. You can't have one without the other. And we were talking too, Jung teaches, Carl Gustav Jung taught about the anima and the animus, and feminine, masculine within everyone, even in males. And it's not so much, it's not about sexuality as in the act of sex. It's about that incarnated, engendered kind of energy, right? That is predominant within us. And I know women that are highly, highly, highly masculine and they're disconnected from their feminine side. I know women who are highly feminine and they tend to be doormats and just like flop over and, you know, oh, I can't do anything in life. I'm a martyr, whatever, right? And they live in that realm of life is happening to me. And then there's not enough balance of the masculine. So how do you, well, first of all, how do you maintain that balance within yourself? And then going through all of that process and that work, how do you help women to begin to empower themselves and maintain that balance for them?
So the balance is first with the tools of Byron Katie, the body and the mind, so that you're recognizing if you're feeling pain or pleasure and how to deal with that. Then the way I do it is feminine energy is universal energy. Like I said, if I'm judging it in any other woman around me, it's because I'm not allowing it and I'm blocking it within myself. So I pay attention. I'm always paying attention to the women that I'm around and the energy. And then that way I know if I'm receiving or I'm blocking. Then to be able to tap into it, that's where the whole animus thing comes in. And it's not something that I typically explain to people because it kind of just makes the head blow up.
Explode,
but
right?
How do I explain this? So the way, but you asked me, how is it that I keep that balance within myself? And so for myself, I'm just very aware of what is my masculine voice, the one that loves me unconditionally, that is always with me, that wants the best for me, that is guiding me, that holds me and allows me to be in my feminine, versus all of the preconceived understanding of masculine and the stories that are attached to either the men outside of me or the one that, you know, still is in my head. I still hear those voices of fear and things like that. We all do. So it's just coming to that realization, I believe, of the awareness that it's possible to hold that type of space. And then when you're in that space, you can literally feel it in your body. And so that's what I feel now. That's what I feel when I'm leading women through this work. To me, it really is about the awareness at all times of what's going on, because our bodies are a tool of communication.
Absolutely. And so is the ego mind, correct? Wouldn't you say? Yeah. And, you know, we talked about this too. There's a lot of messaging out there. And I think it's beginning to shift. But a lot of messaging historically has been that the ego is to be feared, or it's, you know, you need to pursue getting rid of it, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's wrong for you. It's negative. It's this, it's that. We create things, and our reality becomes true for us when we attach to labels. It is my belief and my experience that my ego mind is there for information. Again, it's a part of me that filters stuff, and it's always on the lookout for protection for me. But it can be very helpful, because you were talking about, you know, if we live too much in the masculine or too much in the feminine, we're going to have a hard time starting and growing and taking action, right? And developing and moving. So we need the masculine, we need the ego to say, hey, get up, it's time to do, come on, you gotta take some action, you know, and I'll help you, I'll support you, I'll be here for you. What is it that you recognize in women when they come to you that are attached to their stories and argue for their limitations? How do you help them through that?
I love it. I love it, because the more attached they are, the bigger their freedom is.
Yeah.
So the moment they come in with these attachments, I just sit there and I smile and I know what's coming. And but I'm very gentle with them in the process, and I allow them their space to see their story for what it is. But I don't counsel. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a mental health professional. I simply use the tools that I used in my own life to make the changes that I've been able to make. So to me, when they come in that way, it's like when they make that transformation, it lights me on fire, because I can feel it from head to toe and they can feel it. And a lot of times they've never felt that, or it's been so long that they felt that in their bodies that they're like, oh my gosh, this is how I should be living. Yes, this is how you should be feeling, because nothing outside of us can take away our power. We just, unless we think it can.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we hand it over.
Yes, or we hand it over.
Yeah, we hold that belief, we hand it over. And I can remember I lived decades being disassociated from my own body, and I know that came from my own childhood of neglect and sexual abuse, molestation, and for a period of years. And I can remember just floating above it and watching it all happen. And I had moments of that in my life. And there's periods where it's memory-wise where things are dark. And I know this to be true because then there will be something, even now, decades later, there will be maybe a situation, I don't know, an event or something, a situation that I'm in. The other day I was with my husband, and he was being affectionate with me. And there was something about that my body just went bam. And I was there. I was in that moment, and I was brought back to it, and that memory flashed, and I then caught a glimpse of what it was that had been dark, like literally dark in my filing cabinet, if you will.
Yes.
But immediately my body spoke to me, and it has come forward because of years of preparing myself and forcing myself, maybe processing things and getting my body back connected with my mind and my spirit. So how do you help women in that process of somatic experiencing, right? And reconnecting in their body. And when they have those moments, because I would imagine most of them have had those traumas.
Yes.
Right. How do you help them through that?
So when they're having, that's kind of the first piece, is identifying in the body. Now, if you're talking about like they aren't aware of it because they blocked it out, or it's been repressed on some level. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. And maybe sometimes, there's something that triggers them, and then they feel it and re-experience it.
Yeah. I would say anytime that something's triggered and now you have the awareness of your body and you can recognize what's a memory and what's reality, and you have all those tools, then you're going to move through that experience a lot differently. But I would love to share, that is typical for what I've experienced with most women, and within my own life, I had the same thing. And what I believe, and it's just opinion, is that I believe our energy leaves our body for a reason.
Yes.
To protect us. Our light is precious. It is a part of who we are, and we are connected at all times. But it left our body to protect us, is what I believe. And then I believe that can come right back into a woman's body when she reclaims it. And 100%. So when you talk about that, I completely understand where you're having that somatic experience or memories flash through, because the body still holds on to that. So it's not like you're going to do this course and then never have that experience. It's that you're going to have the tools to know what to do in that experience. So for you, what did you do, knowing the work and doing the work with Byron Katie?
Oh my gosh. So the work, the book, The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk was huge for me. It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, huge for me. gosh, just my own healing journey and reading books by Carolyn Mess, Byron Katie, Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer. I mean, on and on. Carol Dweck and Daniel Pink. Who's the other guy? Goldman. I can't remember his name. Just and my own path of studying psychology and getting into Jung and archetypes and all of that kind of stuff really informed me. So in that moment when I had that experience, I had to stop my husband and tell him, hold on a second, there's a trigger coming forward and it has nothing to do with you. And I just need to regather and center myself here. And, you know, it took that awareness, and he immediately was like, okay. And he is in the same area. He understands, you know, the work that I do and all of that stuff, and understands energy and everything. So he honored that space. And yeah, in that moment, I just, like Byron Katie says, I had to remind myself that I'm not that little child. I'm not that little girl going through it again, and we're okay. We are safe. Yes. And the context here is vastly different, and we're fine.
That is so beautiful. And what you just shared is exactly how I would share that with someone, because that's mature femininity. When you can own it and say, this is what I'm feeling, and I just need a moment to breathe, or I just need a moment to make peace. I know this isn't what you're bringing into the experience. I know that this is my story, but the fact that he held space for you, that's a partner. That's a man totally honoring you. And the more you guys experience that authenticity and that honesty with one another, that's intimacy. That to me is true intimacy, and him just valuing you. That's beautiful. I'm so glad you shared all of that.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was pivotal. And I will say, you know, especially for just the experiences I've had, spirituality and sexuality. And, you know, I think that we have our experiences rooted in church, right? And we know the messaging in church about all of that. You know, it's vastly different than, you know, what God's word says and who God is himself anyway, itself, right? And how we are created. And there's a lot of shame wrapped up in being females and our sexuality and how we express it or don't express it, etc., versus how males express and don't express and all of that. So it can feel a little like, and I know our society, our culture, it's a little incongruent, but it's the truth of the matter is it's not congruent. It's absolutely in alignment and parallel. So how do you explain that?
Ooh. Well, you did a beautiful job just now, because that is exactly, that's the way I explain it is you hold that space in your mind of the masculine and feminine, and that way you can feel this massive amount of pleasure. So to me, I was a virgin when I was in that spiritual experience. I was a woman expressing my sexuality on a dance floor just to myself in a mirror. But it was a part of who I was, and I felt that energy again. That's the connection to me, is that energy, that bliss, that pleasure, that is of God. That's who I am. That's what I believe all women carry within them. It's our light, it's our innocence, it's our sexuality, and it's our confidence. The world has called it sexy and said you got to look like this in order to feel it. It's not true.
No.
It's what you look at in the mirror. It's how you love yourself in that mirror. And when you can love yourself to that level and feel that energy come through your body, it's a spiritual experience, because how else do you explain it? But it's happening to your mind and your body. So the way I say it is, if you look at it this way, when you're in a spiritual experience, you are praying or having faith or putting your intention into something greater than yourself, right? And you're downloading information. But it's you. You're one.
Yes.
Same in sex. in terms of body soul connection. That's what it was made for.
Right.
But the truth is, when we don't allow those stories or that attachment to happen, then we are one.
Mm. Yeah.
And then we can hold that energy and, like you said, not give it away and not feel like we're victims to it all. And so when we claim that, that is our confidence, that is our trust. And to know, and then the other piece of it, I would say, is that, and this is kind of stepping out on a limb, but in the program I go into the sexual aspects of masculine and feminine, so that people can make an association with something that's safe and something that is found within themselves, not something that is without. So
right.
It's not an easy one. I'll probably be explaining that definition for the rest of my life.
Oh, right. Well, and I think that the disruption of it comes from when it is activated in shame-based type events like sexual trauma. That just takes something that's beautiful and woven into us in a wonderful, gifted way, and creates those disruptions. And it is always about the other person, the person acting, right?
Yes, because if women hadn't been traumatized,
right,
and never experienced that, think of the power that they would hold. But when we release the story that it didn't happen to us, but it happened for us to be able to reclaim that part of ourselves, then it puts it in a little different light. So because we hold all that power in our bodies, that's how we manifest. We are the womb. And so to me, that's where a man can, like you said, a man can walk into an office and be confident because for him, his body is very outside, his sexuality is very outside of himself. For us, it's all internal. It's all what we receive. And so that's another big piece of it. That's why that trauma can be healed.
Yes. Her program, guys, is called Ignite the Light. It's a group program, coaching program, and it begins October 9th. And you can find her on Facebook, but you can also find it on her website at www.ajbeaber.com. That's AJ, B as in boy, EA, B as in boy, ER.com. So kind of, man, there was a question I was going to ask you. How does your husband handle you doing this? And how do you handle people that maybe say, oh, you're one of those women who's the sexual revolution, or, whatever, right? Oh. Are you a liber? Things like that.
Boy, that's a good question. To be quite honest, I don't lead with it. So I lead with the love your body, love your life, because that's safe. And that really helps women to be able to come together, because there is so much judgment in that feminine world. Yes. But I love women so deeply, and I believe they feel that. So for us, it's just a natural connection. For my husband, he is so supportive. And quite honestly, he's the one who allowed me that space. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to go through all that healing journey. And what's been interesting is the switch of me coming into my masculine and being able to take action and share and create the tools and the programs and create the platform. And so he has been amazing. He's my soulmate. So for me, he's very masculine, but we honor each other in that way. And he has a lot of knowledge of archetypes, and he understands all of this. So, he's even taken the program. Yes, you do. Yeah. We'll have him on. He can share with you and be better.
Yeah. We'll have to connect.
Definitely.
How do you speak to those women who are kind of stuck in those archetypes of victimhood and martyrdom, right? And they're conditioned, or they've accepted or believed about themselves that that's their responsibility, that's their role, that's their place, etc. How do you encourage them out of that?
I would say that, is it true? Is it
There you
always
go.
true?
Right?
I would go into where the story began, because to encourage them out of that, I can't do that for them. So that's where I've come to find that those women, when they're ready, they will seek out someone like you or I or other people in this world that do this work. And it'll be time for them, because you can't force that upon someone. So I just love them deeply, and I send love to them. And I know that it plants a seed when we have these kind of conversations, and when they know what's possible and they have hope. Sometimes that's all you need to hear.
100%, 100%. And I love that you were stating earlier too that this connection with us, particularly, is, the mind, body, spirit, and the connection of our sexuality and our spirituality together is a force to be reckoned with when we recognize that. Would you say that Marianne Williamson says, for example, that it's not fear that keeps us from success, it's actually the understanding of our full power, right? And stepping into that keeps us from success and showing up. How have you been able to then fully embody this and embrace this? What is that? I know the work has led you through it, but where did you get that spark of, okay, I can do this, I know I can, and I'm ready for it?
So you're talking about that level of confidence when you know that you're moving forward. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I'm understanding it.
Right,
like
and fully stepping into your power, into your connectedness, right? And just
because of my relationship with my masculine. I mean, that's really my answer. Without that, and in those dark years where I didn't have that, that's where it was like, once I recognized that, it's what led me. And so I have literally listened to that internal voice for the last 6 years on this journey. And I believe it's a journey. It's just continuing to grow. But what I've recognized is, when you step onto that bigger platform, it means you're taking on greater responsibility. You're now responsible for others and contribution. I believe that God is our hands and feet and our lessons in this world that we're sharing with one another in a space of love. So when I'm out there in contribution and sharing those pieces of myself, it actually isn't scary. It's like, I feel like I'm living my purpose and I'm doing the work, and it's taking what was once pain and making it pleasure. And it's all of those things tied in. But to kind of just give a real succinct answer as to how to step into that power, it's trusting that inner voice and taking action. No matter your purpose and your light and your voice is bigger than the fear.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I know that there's a verse that's trying to come to my mind in awareness that talks exactly about that. Stepping into that power and just stepping forward in faith and knowing, right, that we are, that we really are of, when we come into that realization that we are more than just this shell and this individual person, that we are connected, that we are one with that source energy and creative energy, then we can't help but shine and radiate the way that we do, right?
Yes, because I believe that truth is a vibration. So your truth, my truth, the reason why we feel it on that level that we can't really explain is because we are one with that. And the more we become one with that, the greater we shine that into this world, and it is
Yes.
unique. It is,
Yes.
and it's powerful.
It
And
is
I'm
powerful.
still, I mean, we're still on that journey. I'm still on that journey. But
Mhm.
every day I get those messages, I still hear a voice of fear. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just recognizing it and saying, I know why you're, because guess what? Every time I've gone past that fear and I've done what it is that made me scared or showed up for whatever purpose,
Mm-hmm.
it just made me step up to a bigger game and go, oh crap, if I can do that, I can.
Right.
you just take more
Right.
responsibility. I think that's how you open up to more responsibility.
Yes.
That's what I really believe.
Yes.
So that fear I tell people that fear is a teacher, not
Yes.
a guide to lead the way.
Yes, I love that. Well, and it can either be false evidence appearing real, right? Or face everything and rise. So which is it going to be? Yeah. And whichever side we take, either one is true for us in that moment.
Yes.
Right? What we believe about ourselves is true.
Yes.
On either side of the coin. So if we
That's
believe
exactly
about
it.
ourselves that we can't and we shouldn't and we don't, and there's shame and there's blame and there's guilt, then okay, yeah, that's true for you.
Yep.
Or if we believe, hey, I'm not a product of what has happened. I may be living that way right now, but I have the power to choose differently and to thrive and go beyond and shine and be and do and share and serve. Right? I love that.
That's right.
Thank you so much. I want to tell you guys
pleasure.
again, connect with AJ. She's on Facebook, AJ Beaber, and go to her website, www.ajbeaber.com. Her group, Ignite the Light, starts October 9th. You can register for that on her website. You and I Inc., The Connection of Sexuality and Spirituality is her book. It's a novel. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Hay House, and if you connect with her on her website, she can get it to you too. You can email her there, sign up for her newsletter, and all of that. Is there any other? Well, leave us with a final thought here, if you would. Anything that comes to mind?
What comes to mind right now? What comes to mind is just, it's okay to receive pleasure. And sometimes women, I think, just need to hear that, be given that permission to receive it. And it's okay to open your body. It's okay to breathe. It's okay to feel. And it's okay to look at yourself in that mirror and to love yourself madly, because it is a relationship that you're going to be in for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Thank you. And if you guys didn't catch that, she was receiving that from Spirit. That message was downloaded big time. Wow. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for being in my life. I'm so grateful that we were connected.
Likewise.
And I'm excited to develop a deeper relationship with you. And you guys connect with AJ, please. She is a fantastic soul. She holds her space well, and she comes by that honestly. You know that the level of integrity that she has and she's exhibited here today enables her to hold that space for you in your own healing. And if you're ready to connect to your spirituality and your sexuality and empower yourself for that, she's the one to connect and hook up with. So thank you so much, AJ.
Thank you, Raylene. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I just have to mention that you hold such a beautiful space, and your spirit and the way that you come across and the questions that you ask are so deep and they are so honoring. And so thank you so much for this time. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And you guys can find me, find Rae-diance Shine from Within every Monday, 9 a.m. Mountain Standard and Pacific, 12 noon Eastern in the healing space. My services are there. Catch me at thehealingspaceco.com. Connect with me there, sign up for my email newsletter, and thank you again, AJ, for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.